Hey everyone, in this video I just want to talk a little bit about our campground. Haven't done an update in a while. So we have owned it now just about a year, and it's pretty incredible what has happened in the last year. So we have essentially doubled the income since the previous owner held it, and just want to touch a little bit on how we did that and a little bit of my input and thoughts on owning a campground at this point. So I wanted to share my screen with you guys here. And give you guys just a little bit of behind the scenes. So this is the campground. If you haven't watched any of my videos before, it's a smaller campground, and I actually want to touch on that a little bit later about the size of it. So we bought it with 38 lots, I want to say, and we've added a few lots. So I think we're somewhere in the low 40s right now. And I think I have just a little bit of a overview here. So you've got the main road down here. You enter the campground. You've got some of it's asphalt, some of it's more gravel, but you've got the pool, you've got the barn, which I'll show you more pictures of that, and then you've got the office or the camp store. It's not a store anymore. It kind of used to be. So that's a little bit of the overview of that. I want to show you just kind of where it lays out in terms of everything else. So right across the road, you got the campground there. You've got the Mississippi River right across the way. So great location. We get a lot of people kind of following the Mississippi River down. The Great River Road is what this is called. And so get people coming down there, checking out the campground, and staying for a couple nights. And so here's a little shot of, well, I thought I had a shot of the barn. But I want to scroll through a few photos. Here's actually some photos of last winter. This is the barn, or the office / camp store. There's the barn. And then I've got a bunch of other random photos. So that it came with a pool. I mean, it has a pool. Didn't it come with a pool? So this pool was built back in the 70s. And that's one of the things that we're considering. Okay, we're probably going to need to be doing updates on it soon. Some of the plumbing has started to leak, which we've corrected most issues. We replaced the pump this year, so we've definitely been doing some improvements to it, as time goes on. Here's a shot of a summer night. This was back in May, the end of May, almost June, and you can see, it really becomes a packed house. I mean, we've got pretty much every single lot filled. We've even got some tents, using some of the space. And this is just part of the campground. So it's really fun to be able to see the thing fill up on a busy night. So I actually had the opportunity to go use the pool once this summer, so that was fun. And here's another cool shot of the camp office and the barn. One of the things I want to touch on, and I've got so many little video clips. If you don't follow me on other platforms, I make a lot of short form content, like on TikTok. So that's why I have so many random short clips of just like showing different things about the campground. Like I might just play a couple of these for you. You can kind of get an idea. This is the inside of the camp store / office. It's actually being remodeled, which currently it's probably almost done, so this video is quite outdated. I'll have to show you guys some updates shortly. But some of the things that I have learned about campgrounds, and I want to touch on the size really quick. So we are in a pretty small park, or campground. Like I said, around 40 lots. And what you have to consider is, do you want this to be a job for yourself? Like, are you planning on plugging yourself into the business and being very involved with the day-to-day management? Or are you looking to be more of a passive investor where you are hiring someone to run it for you and you're just looking more for a passive income? Because the reason why I say that is you need to consider the size that you're buying. So with a 40 space campground, I'll just give you some rough numbers. So our top line, our gross revenue this year is probably going to be somewhere around 200, the low 200s, like between 210 and 215, I want to say. And then you got to, keep in mind that that's before all of your expenses. Now, here's where I need to make a point about the size of it. So that's not quite enough income to support having, on-site staff, people to run it for you. So you're probably going to have to be pretty plugged into the campground. Now, that 200 some $1,000 that this campground makes could be a great income for someone who's, this is all they're doing. They're plugging themselves into it and they're doing all of it. But when you need to start outsourcing things like mowing, cleaning, taking the phone calls, it really eats into the top line pretty quick. So that's something to consider. The way that we're operating it, it's myself, my dad, and my mom. I'm actually pretty hands off on the campground. I told my dad from day one, I really don't want to have a whole lot to do with it. So we own it together. Dad is taking a lot more of the phone calls, doing the day-to-day management, and then mom helps on the back end as well. But I wanted to bring up a way that you can really automate things and then also really increase revenue is going with some sort of software for the business. So we are using something called CampSpot. And CampSpot is a kind of an all-around campground management software that allows people to book online, to pay you. It fills the campground up really nicely because one of the biggest headaches of a campground is scheduling people. You've got a party of 3 that are coming in, but to fit that party of 3 in, because they all want to be like next to each other, then you got to move that one random guy and you got to move him over there, but that's going to overlap with, so-and-so who's, planning to be here for a week. So going with a software, it helps you helps you chart out where everyone's at. How can you utilize the space the best? It's like playing a game of human Tetris. It's like fitting them all in there, and how can you utilize the vacancy that you have? Because the overlapping stays and the parties that come in with multiple people, it just throws a wrench into everything. So that's something you guys really should consider if you're buying a campground, is instantly implementing some sort of software to help you with that management. So my suggestion is, if you're trying to get into this and it's something that you want to be more of a passive investment, or you don't want to be plugged into it, you need to buy something bigger. 200,000 top line, about cut that in half probably for expenses. So you're at 100, and then, that's not counting your mortgage expense. So, you've got that expense on top of that. So once you get down to the bottom line, you probably really don't have a whole lot left over, to pay someone to run it for you. So that's why I say try to buy something. I would try to buy something probably double what we have, like, 80 spaces. And of course, the spaces don't have some, that's not what you should be looking at. It's more of the actual revenue. So, you should be buying something that's bringing in 300,000-400,000 before, you want to consider hiring someone to run it for you. But we have, the way that we have increased revenue so much is really just trying to utilize the space as much as possible. Again, using the software, but then the simple things, taking the phone calls, it's a headache, but trying to, if you get that phone call from the party of 3, call up Mr. Joe over here and be like, hey, Joe, we've got this party of 3 to fit him in. We really need to have you move over. And then doing that, because we've probably picked up, 20-30% more revenue this year by really working that. And again, that's not me. That's my dad. I had very little to do with that. A couple other revenue sources we have, and it's really not worth, much at all. But, we have laundry machines, and this was from a short video that I had made on, I think, TikTok or Instagram or something. So collecting some quarters. Shout out to Amber. One of our employees, she is doing this now, but it's kind of fun to go down and, collect the quarters once in a while, and people actually use them. And another thing I wanted to mention about the revenue and having a steady stream of income with a campground is, you need to consider, are you going to go all short term, like weekend, 3-day stays, or are you going to try to go towards, hosting people for months at a time? Because The problem is, so you're going to have people, I'm sure, reaching out saying, we would love to come in for 6 months. We have a job. We're a contractor, we're a traveling nurse. And that's great. We actually have really enjoyed doing that. But you have to keep in mind that it kind of ruins the campground environment for the people that are coming in just for a weekend, because you can pretty quickly tell, who's a long-term camper and who's a short-term. So the short-term, they're coming in, they want to talk to everyone in the campground. They're there to have fun, have a good weekend, and the contractors, the long-term traveling nurses, they might not even be there over the weekend, and it also looks different. It looks like they're more permanent, and we've definitely had comments from campers that are used to just seeing like 3-day stays. They're like, the campground feels different. It doesn't feel so much like a campground anymore. So that's something you have to be careful of. We are trying to kind of divide the campground and do one section of long term and then the other section of just weekenders, because it does change the atmosphere. But back to having that steady income, I will say having those, group of long term tenants, it really does help, helps kind of where your revenue is going to be every month. Because if it's just the 3-night stays or the weekenders, your revenue can be all over the place. So that's just something to consider. But yeah, all around, I would, say that owning a campground is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but they can be. This is a photo of back before we bought it. They can be very rewarding. I'm not in the day to day, but talking to my dad, he's able to, meet a lot of cool people, build a lot of cool relationships, and they can be a really, really good investment. So, consider that. And that's something you guys might think about as you're looking possibly at purchasing a campground. Consider if it's a mom and pop owner, consider how much you might be able to increase revenue, and reach out to other campgrounds around and make sure you're checking the rates. How far off are they? Are we able to, increase? Are we able to bring monthly stays in? And you never know what you're going to find. So that's a little campground update for you guys. And if you guys want to see more specifics about the campground, let me know. Super fun business and very interesting. Not many people own them. So it's just an interesting thing to own. But anyways, guys, appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next one.